Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Conscious Health Podcast. And with my co host, David Ortega. Welcome, welcome.
Yeah.
And today we are going to explore. So, on this podcast, we tend to explore a deeper wisdom of the body, of the soul, and of everything in between. And today we're diving into a topic that really I think touches both of us. And I think it's what's basically birthed us to really start looking at health in a different way. And today's episode is titled The Energy of Illness and what chronic conditions might be trying to say or to tell us. So, if you've ever felt your body ever speaking a language you don't quite understand, or you have symptoms that are trying to get your attention, you're in the right place, because David and I tend to try and discuss these. So if there's anything you ever want us to discuss, I'm saying this at the beginning, please let us know. We'd be happy to talk about them. And if you're a health professional, please always jump in. So David, what does that mean to you?
Well,
What do chronic conditions tell us?
it means that we are many times so disconnected from our bodies that we tend to neglect what we feel, and we tend to also try to fix the symptom with the quick remedy that is usually a pill. And we don't even allow the body to say what it wants to say, and the process also of your immune system to start developing. So
Yeah.
we are oppressing those feelings, and that probably it's a trauma, probably it's just a conflict that you have, probably is something that you remember, or someone made you remember some situation, and all of those triggers start to develop symptoms in your body that you try to translate by saying that you are getting sick. And just by doing that and taking pills, you completely obliterate the process of healing, and you obliterate also the feelings that you are that that need to come up. And if
Yeah.
you already have those symptoms, is because that's the last layer of telling of your body telling you that something is happening. And
Yeah.
many times we associate that with something that we ate, with something that probably the weather, the changes of the weather, or something like that. But we almost never relate that to our emotions. And many times it is our emotions speaking or trying to speak. And that can be from a very early childhood experience, no? For example, I was just having that a therapy session, and we were reflecting about my childhood, and I was remembering many moments of that, and I saw that as my environment was sometimes triggered by the way my father was, and how my mom also responded to those things, because she was tired, busy. Sometimes she arrived in not the best mood to talk, or to even acknowledge how we felt. Well, all of those things translate into me neglecting many of the things that I was feeling. And
Yeah.
I remember that when I was a child, and even in adolescence, I had a lot of stomach issues. So many of those feelings were repressed and were expressed in my multiple diseases of the stomach, because I usually tend to have stomach issues, either diarrhea or a very like a colic pain, or this And many other times I didn't even know what was happening, but it was reflecting in my stomach, and I usually took some medications because I didn't know anything about other way, no? So
Yeah.
all of those things are the ones that we usually tend to uh, not listen to the body and disconnect from what we are feeling with all the stimuli that we already have now.
Mm-hmm.
It is very, very common that people don't even give a day to feel what
Yeah.
what is happening. No.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree with you. My world starts with the, okay, I'm sick, so what is the emotion that's sitting behind it, right? So, and not only that, what is the belief system? What is the thought process? But I think so often we're taught that when you see illness, that it's a battle to win, or it's like a malfunction to fix, or it's a personal failure somewhere. And I think you're right, from a spiritual, emotional perspective, chronic conditions are not random. Nothing happens by accident. Like, they're really the persistent messages that are showing up in one place that we can't ignore. And like you say, it's the body, right? Um,
Mhm.
and it's not that our bodies are betraying us. I feel that the body is constantly communicating with us. And it
Mhm.
starts with these little whispers, and we ignore them. And it gets louder and louder. And it has this deep wisdom. And I think when symptoms become chronic, it's usually because there's a deeper part of us that has been whispering, like you say, for a long, long time, and nobody's been listening. We've ignored it. And I think we have this habit of really, next week, next month, I'll rest. I'll look at this next time. Oh, I don't have time to eat. I don't have time to nourish my body, nourish my mind properly, because a lot of us are so much in fear of losing our jobs, of working that 9 to 5, that that we're so chasing that we forget that we actually have this amazing, incredible machine that is there. And a lot of the times, and I also believe that we manifest these things,
Mhm.
which is important, because I definitely see the body as a map of energy, right? It's like, it's not just biology. And we've started to discuss this, which is why I love having these conversations, because you're the biology, you have a lot of that. So we get to understand the biology and everything else, and it's a living, breathing map of energy, emotion, and consciousness. So every organ, every system carries its own symbolic meaning, and then I think that's what we've been diving into in all these other episodes. So like an example of that is chronic fatigue usually relates to kind of like soul level exhaustion, that we tend to carry more than our share of things, energetically, emotionally, ancestrally. Even we spoke about ancestral last
Mhm.
episode. The things that we carry from there, like autoimmune conditions, usually in general, and generally speaking, because we're so multidimensional, like inner conflicts, the body attacking another part of itself. It's like, we're at war with ourselves. Or,
Mhm.
skin conditions is literally not feeling comfortable in our own skin. It's like in what we're doing. Gut imbalances, like you were talking about, it's usually your solar plexus. And like, you know, what truth aren't we ready to digest, or stepping into our power? What old emotions are we still sitting on? Um, so it's so important. And yes, I'm generalizing right now. Everybody's unique, but there's so many layers to that. That when it's a chronic illness, there's so much that the soul, either we've been ignoring, or there's the, okay, what is it coming to show us?
Mhm.
A lot of the times, in some unique cases, if we were to entertain that past life regression works, a couple of past life regressions that I've done where people have serious chronic illnesses is they studied that disease as medical doctors in their previous life, and now they've come to experience it. And
That's
it's not only, yeah, it's so cool. And it's not only the karma of the person that's experienced it, but it's the karma of the parent that is there as well, because they're on board with that too. So it's so interesting where the parent has been the assistant in the past lifetime and is still observing, you know, or whatever it may be in those conditions that have presented itself. So it's never usually as straightforward as that. And there's so many, it's multi-dimensional layers, but the body certainly is an energy map. And it's like you say, with all of these stored emotions. So what is the emotion that is stored there? What is the trauma that we've minimized and placed in that organ or in that system? And a lot of it has some sort of an indication, at least in my world, as to the mental emotional aspect of it that has come through.
Yeah. And as you were saying about those phenomena that happen when we tend to reflect past life experiences from that trauma of our parents, or even generations behind, there are many studies that have analyzed this in terms of the type of responses, and they have measured heightened stress responses, for example, increased risk of mental illness, chronic inflammation. All of these have a precursor of past generations, ancestral
Yeah.
wounds that have been shown, and those studies have shown that this exposure, for example, to famine, to racism, to violence, all of those alter the stress gene regulation, and they leave epigenetic marks. I mean, they are not permanent, of course, but they are in the next generation showing this kind of trauma, and they damage the glucocorticoid receptors that are linked to your immunity. So your immune
Yeah.
system is already depressed by the time you are born, and that also explains, for example, this condition that is very common in many people more now, the asthma. And asthma is a disease that is very common when people have deficiencies in these glucocorticoid receptors, because they cannot activate an immune response in the way other people do it. And in subsequent generations, they have seen that these people have descendants of the Holocaust, for example, survivors, which they have exhibit these patterns of high or heightened amounts of cortisol. All of those are tied to these anxiety disorders or respiratory issues that they show, no? And also these adverse childhood experiences that are labeled in the medical jargon, let's say, as ACEs. So these are ACE. Those phenomena, those adverse childhood experiences include abuse, neglect, or household dysfunction, and they correlate a lot with chronic illnesses. So people that have suffered these adverse experiences suffer 2 to 4 times higher risk of heart disease, diabetes, and autoimmune disorders. So 4 times more. That's a lot. That's a lot of
That is a lot.
predisposition that you can have just by the fact that you lived in a toxic, let's say toxic environment. Of course, it's nobody's fault, but just the society, no, how was
Yeah.
molded and how we have been programmed to believe that certain patterns of conduct have to be followed with those abuses, no, of violence many times.
And that's changing right now, I think, with all of these diseases, all of these, it's the sad thing is it's become the norm a lot. And I think a lot of diseases are also have been instilled perhaps over the last 50 years, also based on the food systems, especially in the United States, in what we've been consuming, and the overconsumption of these poisons that we're talking about. I just said to you, I just ate a full chocolate bar before, and I was just like, I haven't had one of those in ages. And I was like, oh my goodness, did I feel I enjoyed it while I ate it, but it was just like afterwards, I'm like, oh, what? And I just this rush of energy is just crazy. But absolutely, it's like I think we've moved away from soul food. In the book that Kellyanne and I wrote, we talk about soul food or junk food in the sense of not only soul food or junk food and what you eat, but soul food or junk food in the movies we consume, you know, in the people we hang out with. Are they soul food or junk food? Even in the sex that people are having, is it soul food or junk food? You know, all of that is kind of like determining kind of like soul food conversations. Like, is the soul food or junk food for us right now? You know, I find a lot of our conversations, you know, quite inspiring. So for me, that is soul food. It feeds my soul. And I think we tend to forget about that because we're so looking for those quick fixes, that Band-Aid. We start to not look at the root cause of things until it becomes really, even when it becomes really, really chronic. A lot of the times we just end up giving up and we're just like, oh, this is what I have. Or that label is like, this is what I'm going to conform to. Kind of like how we talked about the beyond the diagnosis. It's like, this is my label, this is me, this is what defines me. Instead of like what you said earlier is, yes, all these genetic markers might be on here, but it doesn't mean we need to activate them.
No.
Or we activate them to learn what it is and then change them, because that's how we change the generations that are coming. It makes absolute sense in thinking that we've gone through so many wars, you know, those traumas are still there. The amount of earthquakes, the amount of all of that is changing. Our DNA is changing because we hold more light. And we won't even get into, because I don't think it's for this show, but the hybrid DNA that's really been, that humanity has been infused with, that more information is starting to come through when we start looking at, okay, this is totally left field, but things like the Anunnaki, the Greys, and all the rest of that, there is that infusion that is there within the human race, where they talk about that whole junk DNA. It's not. It's just stuff that we don't understand yet. But there is codes in there. And I think these chronic illnesses that are coming up is an opportunity for humanity to heal the emotions that our forefathers didn't actually have the luxury of doing that. Because if we look at our ancestors, they were hard people. They were tough. They needed to be. Those times called for that. It was dangerous not to be like that. So there's parts of us that we genetically switch off in order to survive those times. So I think now that we've created softer times for humanity, we're allowed to, we've created that safe space to move through those traumas, which is why they're showing up as a lot of illnesses, why cancer now has become a very common thing. And almost somebody's like, oh, you know, it's like, oh, diseases like that I've been like, oh, everybody's got this. Everybody's got diabetes. Everybody's like, it's become so common that it's just like, oh, that's just a thing that happens. But it's because we're not addressing those traumas that we've instilled in the conditioning that we've been given, because it's been passed down through the generations. But it's like you say, we have a choice on how we look at these things, right? I always see it as an opportunity of what is the body telling us?
Yeah.
What do we need to look at? Even from a common cold, we can look at stuff like that. Where is the cold affecting us? What organs in the body is it affecting? Is it my chest? Is it my throat? Is it my nose? Is it my sinuses? Is it my head? Like whatever it is, and connect into that, because on some deeper level, and if we look at everything from frequency and vibration, the cold has a frequency, but we would have had to connect to a frequency of that cold somewhere within us. Those frequencies match, which is why they connect. And usually it's connected to an unhealed trauma response that needs to be connected to, addressed. So Thyroid issues. Oh, we come from a long lineage of thyroid issues. Oh, do we speak up for ourselves? Do we talk about things? Do we discuss difficult things? Are we afraid of conflict? Are we always keeping quiet because we're worried that we might rock the boat or people please? All those uncomfortablenesses are stored somewhere in the body. It's
Mhm.
important, like to not see it from a defeatist point of view, but a lot of the time, sometimes when we surrender and say, okay, this is what I have, how do I move through this with an open mind and an open heart? And yes, I think that all medicines work together and have their place for sure. But I think it's always should be tackled from a physical, mental, and emotional perspective and a spiritual perspective, because where do we tap into those ancestral lineage? Where do we tap into those patterns, those past lives that could be influencing this lifetime?
Yeah, it's so interesting how all of these factors get together into a complex mixture of, um, let's say, to awaken our curiosity about what has happened to our parents and how they also, as you mentioned, they needed to adapt to the season or to the time that they were living, and
Mm-hmm.
they needed to repress in order to survive
Yeah,
many things that they were just neglected, but
yeah,
there was no other choice. And
yeah.
by doing that, what happened in the body is that all of that energy got stored, and it needed to find a release. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, this release creates this regulation of the DNA mechanisms that probably I think that in these next 5 years or less than these 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
we will have the information of many of these junk DNA
Yeah,
that is activated mainly. I believe that mainly it's activated by emotional trauma and by many of these responses that we store years ago or in other lives, probably, no. And
yeah,
many of these, the silver lining to people is that we can do something about it. We are not destined to suffer the same thing that happened to our parents, and we have this epigenetic reversibility. So that
yeah,
means that we can reverse the damage with new practices that encompass, for example,
yeah,
meditation, being more aware of your body, being more connected with your body, and allowing it to tell you what is happening. Because many times, if you just listen with more attention, uh,
yeah,
as you are saying, also your body is trying to tell you, well, this happened in the previous days. You had a conflict with brother, sister, or your parents,
yeah.
and it is not a coincidence that 2 or 3 days after you start developing probably a cold or a headache or something in your stomach because you relived many emotions from your childhood
Yeah,
experience, or because you again repressed things that you wanted to say. Any of those choices can be, but if you are more attuned to your body and you recognize what happened and you start rewinding your movie, let's say, and replaying your episodes of your series, let's say,
yeah,
you will understand. You will understand why are these things happening or manifesting in your body. And then you have the ability to let your body start the healing process. What has helped me always to me is that when I write, I understand the things that happen, and I can see the pieces of the puzzle in a, let's say, in a detached way, no? Because when you put the words down in paper, or when you record yourself and then you listen back to what you said or how you felt, then you kind of play a game that is making you the third person that is
Yeah.
listening or reading what happened. And then you can say, oh, now I get what those things happen. Now I get why I have this opportunity. It is so interesting, because yesterday I had a therapy session, and I think that comes in perfect timing to speak about it. And the therapist was, well, asked me questions about my childhood, and I was reflecting about many episodes of my childhood. Mainly, she was asking about how I felt,
Mm-hmm.
and my answer was, I I wasn't allowed to feel, wasn't
Mm.
allowed to express, because I didn't have anyone to talk about my feelings.
Yeah.
And many of those happenings, or many of those things that were in my household, made me see my house as an unsafe place
Mm.
where I didn't want to stay. I wanted to be outside, I wanted to play, I wanted to work, I wanted to do many things, but the only thing that I didn't like was being in my home.
Mm.
And now, as an adult, I have the opportunity, because I returned to the home where I grew up, and now I protect my home so much, and my home is now the place of peace, the place of solitude, that now I understand why I protect a lot my place, and now why I choose very specifically who enters into my home, because I want to protect so much that space, because I didn't have it, and because now
Yeah.
I enjoy it. But what is funny is that synchronistic events that I have lived in many places, even in different countries or cities,
Mm-hmm.
and I suddenly return to the place where I grew up, and I
Yeah.
suddenly have the opportunity to reshape the environment and the scenario where it all happened. So that's the beauty of this energy that we don't understand, and that is the collective energy that allows you these opportunities to, let's say, to edit your movie and to make it better. No.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I absolutely, so I've dedicated programs to rewriting your story because, I believe that certain traumas, first of all, I believe that we choose our lineage because it creates the conditions to receive those traumas, which then births purpose. A lot of the times, our childhood, our experiences, or the limitations, the conditioning that we have usually tends to birth purpose. So, for example, like even for myself, growing up into kind of like spiritually inclined family, yes, it was never something we did. My grandfather had an undercool spiritual study group and I suppose church, where they looked at all things metaphysical, discovered them. And he says it's like it's science, philosophy, and spirituality, or the trinity of where we're at, right? So, which is beautiful. And he but again, it birthed that purpose of helping others, but nobody has ever taken it to the extent of kind of like where I am now. So just taking that a little step further into kind of like really doing a lot of kind of like, I suppose, spiritual type mentoring that I do. But it birthed purpose, all those traumas of being teased. Like my high school caption was underneath was it's called Leva Hexie. I grew up in South Africa, so there was this cartoon of this little witch that had a cat, and her name is Leva
Yeah.
Hexie. So that is my caption, and I used to get teased all the time because I would be reading the strangest books, from like Lobsang Rampa to reading somebody's personality based on their handwriting.
Mm. Yeah.
Things like that I found absolutely fascinating. So it's birthed that, and other traumas that I've been through that I now am able to help people through that, on a spiritual side. A lot of my clients as well, like one, and I'll never forget this, drug addiction. Her and her brother addicted to drugs, and she lost her brother through drug addiction,
Mm.
and it birthed her purpose to help other young people get out of drug addiction because of that. And when we went into their Akashic records, and his contract was specifically to die at that time because it was going to birth her purpose. That
Mm.
was the soul agreement that the two of them had. So a lot of the traumas that we experience, yes, if we don't deal with them, show up as chronic illness. But a lot of them birth purpose. Like, we choose parents sometimes because we're changing the lineage. We don't want to be anything like them.
Mm.
We choose them to change them, or we choose them to reinforce them, one or the other. And I honestly feel that, chronic doesn't mean hopeless. It's like you say, it's the body holding on to a message that hasn't been honored yet. It haven't been seen, hasn't been heard. It's something that needs to be addressed at, and I don't think illness is an enemy. I think it's an invitation to dive deeper into yourself. And a lot of the times it's through illness that there is a spiritual awakening, because all of a sudden we start to realize, okay, who am I? Why am I here? What is the point of this? Right. And a lot of the times when we are diagnosed with something chronic, all of a sudden we find the zest for life when we know that it's like we're not taking it for granted, which is important. Like, to live every day as if it was the last day. We don't have that guaranteed when we wake up in the morning. And it's so funny because my grandmother used to live with us, and we used to say, it was always in Portuguese, we'd say, okay, it's até amanhã, which means until tomorrow. And then it goes, if God wants it. And I would always joke, I said, yeah, because if he doesn't want it, like, there's no way that you're going to wake up. But knowing that is, I mean, absolutely, I agree that I think that we choose our exit point, but it's a curiosity around it. I think that we need to get curious with our chronic illnesses, or with any illnesses, and we need to listen to the body. I think it's so important. What is this telling me? A lot of the times it's like, and it can be even as easy, and okay, this is a little bit alternative, but placing your hand over the organ or the place that is hurting,
Mm.
and really connecting in with it. And you ask the organ, and this is very much a craniosacral technique, is asking if the organ could speak, what would it say? If it could speak a full sentence, what does it need? What support does it need from you? Why is it shouting? It's like, a lot of the times it's like, you're not listening to me, you're not, like, all the rest of that. And then start to allow that, start to facilitate that, start to change your actions around that.
It's so funny that you mentioned that, because nowadays what I do is that I literally ask my body,
Yeah.
what are you trying to tell me, and how do I help you to heal? No, and many times that I have asked that question, I synchronistically have this happening in a video that I need to see,
Yeah.
in an article that I need to read, in something that I talk with someone and it tells me something related to a vitamin or a mineral or something that they also have similar problems. And I say,
Yeah.
oh my God, so I need to take more vitamin B12, let's say, no, and
Yeah,
more potassium and magnesium to activate this electricity and to have less symptoms of cramps or something like that. No.
absolutely. For me, it was like once I discovered I was cold all the time, and I'm like, oh, because you're in a no. I realized I had an iodine deficiency.
Mm.
And I started eating like seaweed because Costco does these amazing seaweed crisps. I would like be like, shut, because obviously the body was needing that. I noticed that when I was pregnant as well.
Mm.
Mostly that's what started to kind of like really, when I went through the births of my daughters, the certain cravings is because your body is lacking that mineral.
Mhm.
Or even certain things. And I found this fascinating. My mom went through this phase of crushing ice, those addictions to crushing ice. And when we looked into it, it was a lack of iron
Yeah.
in the
Yes.
body that causes your body just knows what it needs. It's incredible. We really do need to listen to our bodies.
Also, this restless leg syndrome. That's a
Mm.
name when people are moving their leg and they cannot stop, and sometimes it's annoying for other people because if they are next to you. I was watching a guy in a Starbucks when I was working there, and he couldn't stop moving his leg, and I said, why is he doing that?" And I just Googled those things, and it gave me a lot of information about this iron deficiency, also about this
Okay.
uh, restless leg syndrome. So I said, "Oh, that's why." And he was eating ice, and
Ah, he was
he was
crunching
also
ice.
eating a lot of sugar in
Mm.
his beverage. And I said, "Oh." So everything has a reason for happening.
Yeah.
And when we ask our body and or our organs, that is also related
Hmm.
to Reiki and the energy of Reiki, where, when you put your hands and when you have this connection with the energy of the universe, and you heal certain parts of your body by just placing the hands in the positions of that Reiki is training you,
Hmm.
you allow this healing to happen, and that I tested that recently in the past 2 months that I had this constipation of my nose, and I didn't why it happened. Well, now I know what happened, but I was just asking my body to heal, and when I place my hands here and in all of this area of the sinuses, that's what I was thinking about the to flow to everything that was stuck there,
Hmm.
any kind of emotion, any kind of conflict that I had, and was being reflected in my nose or my sinuses. I just allow it to flow. So I had more or less 2 or 3 days of running nose and many fluids. I mean that I just liberated, and and I said, well, this is my body healing. The
Yeah.
fever that I had also was reflected in that. So when you understand your body and when you trust that it will do the job, because that's how it is designed,
Hmm.
then your healing process is much better. It's not faster. Let's clarify that. It's not
Yeah.
faster. So if people are desperate, they won't allow to happen. No. But if you're patient and you think that you are making your body stronger by allowing it to heal in the time that it needs, then when you heal, you will be stronger to address any other infection, let's say, that you might have. No.
Actually, I disagree with you. It will happen faster if you actually focus and give it the time that it needs. Because
Mm-hmm.
so many of us don't give it the time that it needs. We're such in a hurry. That you're
Mhm.
right, it doesn't give us the time that it needs to, because we try and rush it, right?
Mhm.
Which is why the other reason why we unnecessarily take pills to fix it quickly, right?
Yes.
So you're right, you can't really rush it. You can. The only way you can is if you give it its full attention and its focus.
Mhm.
That's how you rush through it. But if you ignore it again when you're feeling a little bit better, which I have a very bad habit of doing that, where I'm feeling a little bit better and I'm, yes, let's go. And whereas like you're needing to kind of like, no, let's calm down a little bit more, let's take a few more days. But I think again, it's our conditioning into kind of like suck it up, move on, come on, time is ticking, you're missing work, you're missing this, you know,
Because we are so pressured by society to have things
yeah,
quickly and
yeah,
instantaneous that we lose the ability to be bored, to
mm,
reflect more, to understand what is trying to tell us a movie, a song, a book, a series.
mm-hmm,
That all of this relates to what you talk about also about the soul food and the junk food. I mean,
yeah,
we usually tend to go to the junk things because they are high in dopamine,
mm,
low, very, very low in nutrition, let's say. Now, whatever it is the case, nutrition for your mind or nutrition for your body,
mm-hmm,
whatever it is the case, we usually go for the easy and more pleasurable thing, and that's not
yeah,
always the best one.
the best, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I think nothing happens by accident. Everything has a reason. I think we draw towards us everything,
Mhm.
consciously or subconsciously. I believe that illness is not the enemy. I usually see it as an activation or a release of some sort. A lot of the times when we can't afford to give the illness the time that it needs or to investigate or to curious, it becomes quite chronic. So I think if
Yeah,
I were to sum things up, is start listening to your body and learn what it has to say. And whether it's physical health or intuitive spiritual health, your body always knows. There's always a resistance to making a decision that's not in alignment with you, whether it's
yeah,
to help somebody or that it really isn't good for you, or to whatever it may be, like people pleasing. A lot of the times we get that answer of like, oh, I don't want to do it, but I feel like I need to. That's a visceral, your body going, no,
yeah,
no, no, don't do it. you know?
yeah.
So I
And you feel
suppose,
that pain, and you feel that pain, no?
yeah, and we override it. So I think needing to allow the body to just be the body and to honor it as a beautiful vehicle to experience this dimension, this life. Um, in it. So I think it's one of the great things. I wake up every morning and I'm like, yes, another day. What magic and miracles are going to show up for me today? And it's almost kind of like I force that smile. And I mean, usually it comes naturally. I'm a morning person. Um, but it's like, yes, another day. I've made a point of celebrating being
Mm.
alive one more day, every day as it comes. So yeah, I think listen to your body, listen to your emotions, allow them to express, and yeah, think soul food or junk food in
Yeah.
everything that you do.
Well, that's a pretty deep summary of everything that we haven't spoken, and I just want to say that we need to integrate more the
Mm,
emotional, the systemic things that we need to make in the physical side. So the changes that we need to do
yeah,
in habits mainly, and also breaking cycles of trauma and patterns and things that happen. They are just as you mentioned, they are purpose events that you need
yeah,
to translate and to see as opportunities to grow and to expand and to heal future generations. Because if you heal your own trauma, and if you heal those epigenetic marks, you will immediately pass on also that energy towards your children and towards the future generation of your children,
Yeah.
in spite of not we don't have a physical thing to measure that yet, but we know that when we heal something for past generations, we suddenly close those trauma and we
Yeah.
open new gates for the people that is coming to be healthier. No?
It's no different to the study in morphogenetics. If our previous generations have an impact on the anxiety in these generations, the healing of this will have that
Mm-hmm.
effect on the future. But it's not only your children, but it's your siblings and their kids and everybody else's. You change it 7 generations before, 7 generations to come, and it starts to. And then if you think of it in that way, you're healing the collective as well. So you heal for yourself and for everybody because you change the energy of the collective one person at a time, which is
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
Yeah. One
And brave.
person multiply by 7, let's say. No. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
thank you for this reflection, for this episode. I think that we are going to help a lot of people to reflect about their own lives, and also to be more empowered to edit, to change the effects of their own movie, and to make it better. And you just have that freedom of always changing the story. No.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Have an amazing week, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.